the not null constraint. So what not null constraint does? A not null constraint restricts the insertion of null values into a column, right? If you are using a not null constraint for a column, then we cannot ignore the values for this column during an insert of the data into the table, right? So as it says, if you are assigning not null to any column, that column cannot have null values. You need to make sure you are inserting some data into that particular column. And there are two ways to define that. First, the table level while creating the table itself, right? So we can just specify not null as the constraint. And then in case you created a table earlier and you forgot to add the constraint, then you can always alter the table and add the constraint using the alter table command. So let's see how it works. So here I have created a table employees, just the DDL for now. So let's see, we have columns like employee ID, employee name, gender and salary. And I will be defining this employee ID table as a not null column, right? So I have added a constraint not null for this employee ID. And now let me create this table. So the table got created. So now let's insert some data. Employees, values, employee ID 101. In name, let's say we are giving Paul, and gender, let's say male, salary 10,000. So this is an ideal case scenario. So this record satisfies all the condition for this table. The data types are matching, the rows or the values are in order of this particular columns, right? So it should not fail. We can easily insert the data. So if we do a select star from employees, we should see this record, right? So next time I have one more insert statement, right? And this time I give null. Means for some reason we missed to insert the provide the employee ID. And if we run this particular statement, this time it will throw an error saying cannot insert the null value into employee ID column because it doesn't allow nulls, because we have defined a constraint not null in this column, right? So this is how it works, the not null constraint. And there can be multiple not null constraints on different columns in a single table. Means multiple columns can have not null constraints. For example, the gender column, right? At this point, while we defined the DDL, we forgot to give a not null constraint in the gender column in employees table. So we can add a constraint by altering the table. So we can do alter table employees, right? So then what we need to do, we need to alter column and add alter column, and the column name is gender. So we'll keep it gender and we'll make it not null. So what we did here, we are first altering this table, then we are altering this column. So gender has a data type of character 6. We need to give that also. So we are changing this column gender, which was of type character 6, to not null. So before I run this, let's see what happens here. So let's take one more example, right? So this time I have, let's say 103, give it Raj, let it be male, and gender I give it as null. What happens? So this record will get inserted because at this point we don't have any constraint on gender column and it can take null values. So the null value got inserted, right? So let me delete this, delete from employees where empid equal to 103. So I deleted that record for Raj, and let's alter this table now and add a constraint on gender column, and the constraint will be not null constraint, right? So I executed this statement, and let's try to insert this record one more time. So since we added the constraint not null, this time when we try to insert, it throws us an error saying the value null cannot go into the gender column because it doesn't allow null, right? Clear on this part, how not null constraint works?
Yes, bhai.
Yeah, so this was
Alter
on,
table name. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yes,
there are
bhai.
two ways to do it. First, you can provide a not null keyword after the column on which you want to add this constraint while creating the table itself. And for some reason, if you miss it while creating the table, you can always use this alter command to alter the table GDL and add a constraint on the required column. The only thing is like you have to remember it will be altered table name, then alter column, and after column, which column. So when you give the column, you need to give the column name along with the data type which it has, and then add the constraint. Okay, so this was on not null constraints.